Hi, world of Instagram. I am decently certain that no one's going to actually join me live, which is totally fine. I just want to say that I'm super excited. 5 people watched the video that I posted on YouTube, which I think was pretty cool, and 32 people watched it on Instagram, so that was pretty awesome. So today I wanted to focus on 2 things. The personal anxiety topic is I want to sort of help let everybody understand what it is like day to day. And I feel like the most common misconception that I've run into is this idea that oh, you're okay now because you have this really good day and you're smiling a lot and all of these other things, when in reality it's just a better day than another day. So, for instance, yesterday, I, had a bunch of stuff to do for work, and I was kind of anxious about some other stuff, and it was a really difficult day, anxiety-wise, to sort of get through and to push through, and decently exhausting, just having to work through that all day. And then those specific anxieties lifted a little bit, and so today was pretty good, because I had those specific anxieties lifted. Now the election results are coming in, so it's less good, but in general, that's kind of how it worked. So that was kind of the personal anxiety thing. Just know that if you have people around you in your life who have anxiety, a good day does not mean they don't have anxiety. A good day does not mean that they just worried too much the day before, or that somehow they're getting better. Because I can guarantee you that within the next few weeks, I'm going to have another stretch of days that's really, really difficult to get through. And that's just how it works. And to me, personally, that's one of the differences between how I know whether or not what I'm experiencing is anxiety or depression. Because when I was experiencing depression, I didn't get as many good days. There weren't these breaks where I didn't feel terrible like there are when I'm experiencing something that's closer to anxiety. So I tend to track it, not really officially, but I do an app. I have an app called Happify on my phone, and I really like it. They have different tracks and lessons that you can go through that sort of give you extra tips on, handling whatever specific it is that you want to work on. So sometimes I'll do loneliness or, whatever it is that I'm working on. But one of the things that they do is about every probably 2 weeks, I've never actually tracked it, you fill out this little survey that kind of helps to tell yourself. And I use the free version, so it doesn't give me my week-to-week data. However, if you pay for it, you can track your week-to-week data. So, but it asks you the questions: how many times have you felt anxious in the last 2 weeks? How many times have you felt frustrated? It goes through how many times you felt happy or joyous, and both the positive and the negative, and then it gives you the score. And so I sort of write down those scores, and when I have a set of weeks that are more difficult than they should be, then I start to look back and say, if this continues, then it might be changing. So it's kind of that self-monitoring piece to me is really important, and that's why if my anxiety had continued and it hadn't broken, and what I experienced at the end of last week had continued, then I would really change the narrative that I have with my healthcare professionals about what I'm going through, and say oh, I've noticed a change in my mood. Here are the specifics. And so I think that that's really important. The second thing that I'm going to talk about is something that is really close to me, and it's really important to me, and hopefully when I get more followers on these, if that ever happens, I'll probably talk about it again. And that is the media showing mental health. And I think that this is kind of a debated topic at times, because sometimes the media does a really good job at showing mental health issues, and sometimes they do a really terrible job at showing mental health issues. And so I'm not really going to get into the specifics of what are good representations and what are bad representations, because I think in part of that is determined by your own experiences with mental health. And I think that's why it's so difficult to figure out what exactly is a good representation and a bad representation. The most controversial recent representation was 13 Reasons Why. And I have a really personal connection with 13 Reasons Why. It is the book that I read when I was in high school and I was struggling, and I would read it over and over and over again. So personally, I have not watched the show, and I can't comment on the show's portrayal of mental health, its portrayal of suicide, and all of those other things. I do know that it was very controversial when it came out because there was this increase in suicides. And so the first thing I think that it's important to talk about when it comes to media and mental health is having an open conversation and making it normal to have an open conversation about whether or not a specific media is a good idea to watch. And if you really want to watch it, making sure that you are set up to be successful and you're set up to be safe. So I would love to watch 13 Reasons Why one day. It was a book that got me through a lot. But I know that I'm not in a mental place right now where I can handle watching 13 Reasons Why, partly because of what it meant to me, and partly because I know that there's going to be a lot of things in it that are very triggering. And so I think that, it's that having that conversation is really important, and knowing things like, I might have to turn this off. And having a friend there with you who's supportive of that and who knows that if you have to turn this off, what is the game plan to make sure that you are safe going into the next few weeks is really important. That being said, though, and I do think those warnings need to be out there, I think that something like that happening shouldn't shy people away from showing mental health, especially in more of a minor everyday sense. I will say that for me, one of the most valuable things is the ability to find people talking about their mental health online. Because when I'm going through anxiety, when I'm going through a struggle, being able to find someone who's going through the same struggle and find a representation of that can help get me through it, and is super important. So I have a list of shows that I feel like have done a good job at times at portraying this. To me, I think some of the most important ones are shows, my neck is itchy, that are directed at kids. I teach kids who have had really difficult lives. And I teach a group of kids that is put in a situation where they might experience mental health problems at some point in time in their life for whatever reason. And the more they understand that they're not alone and that they're okay, I think the better off they'll be. When I get sort of stressed out, I like to watch shows that are totally mindless, and so sometimes I'll turn to, like, what's Disney doing right now and things like that. And recently I watched Andi Mack. And one of the characters on Andi Mack has panic attacks. And I thought that was and he is anxious about lots of things, and he also has panic attacks. And I thought that was such an amazing thing. And what it actually did was, when a friend of mine was having a really extreme anxiety attack or a panic attack, I wasn't there, and I was able to call them and get them on the phone. I actually knew some of the things I could say and be helpful because I'd seen it on media, and I'd seen it on television and things like that. So that was really important. Another one is Alexa and Katie. That's another panic attack situation where the best friend, Katie, has several panic attacks in the last season, and that was another one where she sort of was, a little bit taken aback and embarrassed by it, and a coworker friend helped her through it. And that one I really liked because he knew what to do because he had a family member who had panic attacks. So even within that, they are expanding this idea that, you're not alone, and that the characters within that weren't alone. A little bit more of an obscure reference, and one day I'd really like to make a YouTube video where I can show the clips of these. I don't know how to do that now, so it'll probably take a little bit of time. Is a show called Scam. And if you have never heard of Scam, I highly recommend you look it up. The American version of it kind of sucks, but the other versions are pretty good. So Scam is a show that exists in, I think, 7 or 8 different countries, and it's the same general plot line in each country, but done with different actors and released in a really unique way through an online platform. And one of the characters in the show experiences a sexual assault, and as a result of that, her anxiety becomes very high. And there is a scene that, especially in the Belgian version of it, with the characters Zoe and Senna, if you want to look it up, where she just sort of gets to this point and she's hyperventilating and she can't breathe, and just seeing that happen to someone and knowing that that's how I felt before has been so helpful. And then watching the other characters handle it is also really helpful because it gives me something physical that I can show the people in my life. This is what I need from you. To me is really important because it's really difficult for me to explain using words what's the most helpful way for someone to respond to something with mental health for me, whether it's an anxiety attack or just increased anxiety. And so when I can show them a video saying, this is what I need you to do, this is what would be helpful, I think that's fantastic. And as I said before, kind of these things and these exposures have helped me be able to respond to the people in my life with mental health issues, or who are having maybe a mental health crisis, because I've seen it before. And I'm not saying that anyone should take, medical advice from a Disney show. But at the same time, if you're doing an accurate job at showing legitimate ways that one can help someone through these difficult times, then what you are doing is arming a group of people with tools to be able to say to their friends, A, you're not alone, and really mean it because they've seen people go through it before, and to be able to figure out how to help someone because it's not always intuitive. And, if someone is hyperventilating and pacing and going through these tics and just having all of these negative thoughts flow out of them, then it's often not enough to just look at them and say that's not true, because they're not in the mind set right now where they have the ability to believe that. And that's really, I think, important to know, because as someone who's had conversations with people who don't have any struggles with anxiety, it's difficult for them to understand what it's like in the head of someone who's going through anxiety. Like, why can't you just get it? And so I think that those depictions are really important. All right, that's my 2 cents for this week about anxiety and mental health in society. Thanks for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, like it, share it with your friends. My YouTube channel is just Jale Brown. You're welcome to find the link there and share it as well. If you're friends with me on Facebook, I literally never go on Facebook. I have not gone on for years, but I have been posting these videos over there, so you can always jump over there, find it, and share it. As I said before, mostly my point of this is I want to normalize conversations about anxiety and other mental health problems that people are going through, and I think having an open conversation is the best way to do that. So share it, please. Let's start this conversation and see if we can beat more than 32 views this time. All right, have a great evening. Happy Election Day. I'm sure I will slip back into kind of not being able to completely control my anxiety while I wait for the final results to come in. But until then, have a wonderful time. Take a deep breath. And I'll see you next week.